If you were buying a car in Britain during the 1960s, it was an exciting time to be a driver. New models seemed to appear every year. Families who had never owned a car before were finally getting behind the wheel. And for many people, buying a motor represented freedom, independence, and a better standard of living. But not every purchase turned out to be a good one. Some cars looked fantastic in the showroom. Some promised modern engineering and exciting performance. And some were backed by advertising that made them sound like the perfect choice. Then reality arrived. Unexpected breakdowns, rust problems, questionable reliability, and repair bills that seemed to appear far too often. Now, before we begin, it's worth saying that every car on this list has its supporters. Some owners loved them, some still do, but enough drivers experienced frustration that these cars earned reputations many never managed to shake. So tonight, let's take a proper trip back and look at 10 cars from the 1960s that many drivers regretted buying, and see whether you agree. Number 1. The Hillman Imp. Now this one started with huge promise. When the Hillman Imp arrived in 1963, it was supposed to challenge the Mini. It looked modern, it was compact, and it featured a clever rear-engine design. On paper, it sounded brilliant. Unfortunately, early owners quickly discovered problems. Cooling issues became common. Reliability concerns started appearing, and mechanics weren't always familiar with the car's unusual layout. For many buyers, ownership became more complicated than expected. That's a shame because the Imp actually handled very well. But first impressions matter, and those early problems damaged its reputation. Even today, plenty of people remember the headaches that came with owning one. Number 2. The Ford Anglia 105 ENOW. This may surprise a few people. The Ford Anglia is remembered fondly today, and rightly so. It became one of Britain's most recognizable cars. But not every owner had a perfect experience. Rust could become a serious issue, especially in Britain's damp climate. Drivers who expected years of trouble-free motoring often found corrosion appearing sooner than they liked. And while the Anglia was dependable in many respects, keeping rust at bay became a constant battle. Mind you, many owners still loved them, but plenty wished they had known what was coming underneath. Number 3. The Triumph Herald. The Triumph Herald looked fantastic. Stylish lines, plenty of chrome, and a modern appearance that appealed to buyers. But beneath that attractive design, some owners encountered frustration. Build quality wasn't always consistent. Electrical issues occasionally appeared, and reliability could sometimes be a bit unpredictable. Nothing unusual for British cars of the era, perhaps, but enough to leave some drivers disappointed, especially those who expected a premium experience. Number 4. The Austin A40 Farina. The Austin A40 Farina was practical, affordable, and hugely popular. For many families, it became a first step into car ownership, but owners soon discovered a few drawbacks. Performance wasn't exactly inspiring. Motorway driving could feel hard work, and when fully loaded with passengers and luggage, progress became rather leisurely. Drivers who expected something more capable occasionally found themselves regretting their choice, particularly on longer journeys. Number 5. The Singer Gazelle. Now, here's a car many people have forgotten altogether. The Singer Gazelle shared much of its engineering with Hillman models. It looked smart enough, and it offered decent comfort. But reliability complaints followed some versions. Owners sometimes found themselves dealing with faults that seemed to appear more frequently than expected. And because Singer wasn't as large a brand as some rivals, parts and servicing could occasionally become a nuisance. Not ideal when you relied on your car every day. Number 6. The Morris 1100. Now this is another controversial choice. Because the Morris 1100 sold incredibly well. In fact, it became one of Britain's best-selling cars. But popularity doesn't automatically mean satisfaction. Some owners experienced gearbox problems. Others found maintenance costs higher than expected. And while the innovative suspension provided a comfortable ride, it occasionally required attention that some drivers weren't prepared for. Many loved the car, but not everyone, and some regretted buying one. When repair bills began appearing. Number 7. The Vauxhall Viva Hayth. Early Vauxhall Viva helped establish Vauxhall in the growing family car market. It was affordable, easy to drive, and sold in respectable numbers. However, rust once again became a familiar complaint. British weather was never kind to cars in the 1960s, and the Viva often suffered accordingly. Drivers who expected long-term durability sometimes found themselves disappointed, especially after only a few winters. Number 8. The Wolseley Hornet. Now the Wolseley Hornet certainly had character. It offered a slightly more upmarket take on the Mini formula. More chrome, a longer boot, and a touch of prestige. The problem? Many buyers expected something significantly different from the Mini underneath. Instead, they often discovered they were paying extra for appearance rather than a dramatically improved driving experience. Some owners questioned whether the added cost was really worth it. And that's often where regret begins. Number 9. The Sunbeam Rapier series. The Sunbeam Rapier looked sporty and sophisticated. Many buyers were drawn in by its attractive styling, but ownership didn't always match expectations. Fuel economy wasn't particularly impressive. Maintenance could become costly, and some drivers found performance less exciting than the appearance suggested. The result was a car that occasionally left owners feeling slightly underwhelmed. Not terrible, just not quite what they had hoped for. Number 10. The Triumph Spitfire. Now, before anyone rushes to the comments, yes, the Triumph Spitfire is a beloved classic today. But back in the 1960s, not every owner was delighted. The Spitfire looked brilliant. Affordable sports car ownership suddenly seemed possible. But practical it was not. Weather protection could be questionable. Interior space was tight, and reliability could occasionally test your patience. For drivers expecting glamorous sports car motoring every day, reality sometimes proved rather less romantic, especially during a wet British winter. Still, many owners eventually forgave its faults, because when the sun was shining, few cars felt quite so enjoyable. Looking back now, it's easy to forget just how different car ownership was in the 1960s. Modern drivers expect cars to start every morning, run for years with minimal maintenance, and rarely leave them stranded. Back then, things were different. Cars demanded attention. Owners often carried tools in the boot. Weekend repairs were common, and rust was practically a fact of life. So, when a car developed problems, people noticed, especially because money was tight for many families. A new car represented a major purchase. Months, sometimes years, of saving, which meant disappointment felt all the more painful when things went wrong. Yet here's the funny thing. Many of the cars on this list are now remembered with enormous affection. Enthusiasts restore them. Collectors treasure them, and former owners often smile when they see one today. Time has a way of doing that. The frustrations fade, the memories remain, and somehow, even the troublesome cars become part of the story. Part of growing up, part of family life, part of Britain's motoring history. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Which 1960s car do you think drivers regretted buying? Did you own one of the cars on this list? Or do you completely disagree with some of these choices? Go on, let me know in the comments. I always enjoy reading your memories, and there's usually a lively debate whenever these old motors are discussed. And if this video brought back a few memories from the old days, give it a like. It helps more people discover these stories and keeps Britain's motoring history alive. And if you enjoy these trips down memory lane, don't forget to subscribe. There's plenty more classic cars, forgotten stories, and nostalgic journeys still to come. Because sometimes the cars we remember most aren't the ones that worked perfectly. They're the ones that taught us patience. And for quite a few drivers in the 1960s, these cars certainly did that.